HIPAA documents and secure document sharing. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of these details, and we're going to be talking about some of the implications of having detailed HIPAA documents in a web-facing portal. Definitely want to be careful with this, and we're going to kind of get into the weeds in a specific use case that we completed at scale, and then kind of talk about some of the offshoots from that. We'll also briefly touch on integrations to back office systems, as well as the security and privacy role. With that said, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is point out that with this particular view, we've removed any kind of secure information, but the idea here is that this view includes a tree view that's essentially like a file explorer that you would typically expect whenever you're looking at files, but it's in an online portal. The user has the ability to see this view. Based on their role, they have access to different sets of information. So they, in particular, can upload files to a folder structure, and then based on that user's settings for that file and what type it is, the different users who are in their community, for example, in their particular company or organization, they can access that file, as well as the provider who's reviewing these files. They can also access that file based on their roles. Now, this is kind of an interesting situation where this particular company that we built this portal for, they help companies to qualify for Medicare and Medicaid within their community of healthcare providers. And so they're interacting with them with documents that show proof, essentially, that they would provide to the government so that they can qualify for being able to take Medicare and Medicaid patients. So there's a lot of back and forth with documents, and these documents are very HIPAA sensitive and just generally secure documents that we want to preserve the security of. Now, one of the other things about this kind of model is with the overall structure, we need to be able to provide kind of a standard template for each of these communities. So you can kind of think of this as like a blueprint for different documents and different processes that they need to engage in. So the internal team that provides this support, they need to have kind of a master set of information and a standard that they can then kind of copy into each community and then be able to keep up to date with each community as well. So there's a lot of inheritance at play here, and that can be really scary if you think about it, if something goes wrong. So we really want to make sure that we plan out whatever documentation you're doing. We do want to plan it out in a lot of detail so that everybody's on the same page about what the business logic is going to be and what the source of truth is, or kind of the master documents that we're going to use. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this documentation system is we can encrypt all of the data really well at rest. We can do some pretty powerful things with tokenization. So we can actually take the sensitive data and essentially move it out, or kind of desensitize it, if you will, from the default documents. And so we can do some things with tokenization of the data where we're only injecting the data when the final document is produced, instead of having it stored with all the sensitive data directly in the document. It kind of depends on your scenario as to how sophisticated you want to get with your documentation management. And we'll take a look at a few other examples here in a minute. One of the other things, though, that we'll point out is the users have a subscription capability. So they have roles where they can access different folders and different files, and we can specify it on that granular of a level. We also, per user, can kind of, take over the inheritance or have a higher level of inheritance prioritization on a user level. So they're in a role, they have access by the nature of that role to certain files, but maybe we say, hey, even though they're in this role, I want to exclude this user from this folder or this file. It can be that granular. Or the reverse, we want to give this user access to this folder or this file. So that's possible as well. Now, whenever they are subscribing, they can actually see notifications about changes to different folders or files, and they can get a heads up, not the detail of what was changed, but a heads up whenever something actually changes. In this particular use case, they also are going through different workflows, filling out different forms that are custom that allow the users to kind of complete a workflow when they're trying to get their organization certified. So these documents may get updated, or they may need to go finish a document, and then someone on the internal team that's certifying or helping this group get certified may need to get a notification about that. So it's all quite dizzying, all the information that has to happen. And as you can imagine, mistakes can occur if we're not really careful with this HIPAA data. So we want to encourage you, if you have a scenario like this, maybe it's not quite as complicated, maybe it's more complicated. We have done a lot of work in this space. This is just one example where we are working with HIPAA data in a document kind of format. We've done a lot with OCR and being able to deal with, not perfect data, dealing with Medicare, Medicaid, and just general health insurance data, and being able to produce documents for that, as well as e-signature and the ability to produce tokenized documents where we can have a standard set of documents. And we'll kind of take a look at a few examples of that as well. Okay, let's go dive in now, just so you can see some different examples. Okay, so in this particular example, we're gonna dive in and kind of look at really high level a HIPAA environment where we are sharing data via forms, and this is producing e-signed documents. Now, for this particular use case, this is integrating to a back office system that has a very secure database, and we're integrating with that data system. Now, this is a custom platform that we're integrating with. So we just want you to know that we can integrate with pharmacy systems, different EMR, EHR systems, some of the standard kind of, common EMR, EHR systems via HL7v2, HL7v3, FHIR, etc. Any kind of typical APIs, of course, as well, and do that in a secure way. But in this case, we are interacting with a very custom HIPAA secure database, and we're bringing data from that database into this user's portal and then bringing that into forms. And those forms are then helping us generate documents that are secure, and those are going to be used for government purposes. So these need to comply with certain kind of standards for the e-signature and for the forms themselves. Now, whenever it comes to documentation, we can work with external platforms like DocuSign, or we can leverage our own platform that we've set up to be able to handle e-signature capabilities. Depending on how robust of a requirement you have and what tools you want to work with, we can enable either of these type of scenarios. Okay, now let's take a look at another example as well. Okay, so in this particular example, we are conducting an e-signature process during the checkout and during a telehealth process where a prescriber is coming in and they're providing completed steps for putting a code on this document, providing an e-signature, and then putting the date on there. And they're basically saying, I certify that this patient should be prescribed with this test, or with this particular pharmacy, I should be able to get this prescription filled, things like that. So in this particular use case, the prescriber is going to log in and they're going to see this view. They're going to be able to fill out the code, put their signature in. They can use a saved signature if they want, or they can type their signature. And then they're going to be able to provide that on the document. And then they're also going to be able to see the actual signatures later. So if we want to just kind of quickly look at what that looks like from a dashboard view, you can see that there's a signature request area, so they can actually go and see some of these signatures that have occurred. Now, ultimately, this is something that is going to tie back, in this case, to a pharmacy platform, basically a lab result system that's managing all this via APIs that they have available. And we're tying all of this dynamically so that whenever a user places an order, it's going to push that request over to a telehealth session and to a pharmacy or a prescriber, depending on the situation. And then whenever that is approved, there's a workflow where the patient's going to be notified, and then the actual kind of fulfillment center is going to send out this lab test kit to the patient. And you get the idea. It's a pretty detailed process, and we have to document every single step. So the question that I would have for you watching this video is, what are the steps that you need to complete? And in particular, what are some of the edge cases that can occur with this documentation process? Is it possible that someone sees a mistake on a document and they need to flag it? Do you have the ability to do that? Is it possible that someone needs to be able to export this data to comply with certain government regulations or a review? What happens if a patient requests that you remove all their data from the system or make it exportable so they can bring it to another covered entity, another healthcare provider? These are all scenarios that we recommend considering. And ultimately, whenever you have a HIPAA project, you're going to need to comply with security and privacy rules throughout the process. Now, whenever you're dealing with sensitive data like this, the security and privacy rules and the way that you're going to want to leverage them, there really are a lot of details. We have a lot of videos that kind of go into the weeds around that. We certainly recommend taking a look at those if you are interested. Overall, though, we'll kind of wrap up this video by talking about next steps and just general thoughts for your HIPAA secure documents. Okay, so just to kind of wrap things up for you from a very high level perspective, we looked at some different scenarios where different user types are going to be sharing documents. We're going to be interacting with patients to get documents filled out. We're going to be interacting with internally created systems or external APIs for document creation. We have the ability to tokenize. We have the ability to share and provide notifications, kick off workflows. And we have the ability to comply with the security and privacy rule with these documents. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to be responsible for managing all of these different details within your healthcare organization. And we want to help you with evaluating and providing the best kind of solution for your patients and for your internal team to make this happen. We provide what we refer to as a complementary discovery process to help folks that are looking at HIPAA projects and evaluating what to do. This complementary discovery is a really awesome way for you to just kick the tires and get some more information as you're evaluating your upcoming HIPAA project. If you're interested in this, it's a hassle-free way to interact with one of our experienced business analysts and other relevant team members who have literally a combination of decades of experience working on HIPAA projects like yours. We bring to the table different examples and different scenarios so we can kind of help you poke holes, and then we're going to give you documentation that you can take with you and work with that information whether you work with us or not. And so ultimately, we want to provide this as a resource to you as you evaluate different options going forward. If you're interested, feel free to contact us on our website, clarity-ventures.com. If you found this video helpful, feel free to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more, feel free to subscribe, and we will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.